Julia and Roma's relationship is an onion. It has many layers. The next series I then read was one that was pitched to me as Project Runway meets Mulan, and it failed to meet both of them. Oh my gosh, this sapphic sci-fi. It was just so beautiful. Oh, holy shit. Hi friends, my name is Joel and welcome back to my booktube channel. Today we're going over the 11 stories that I read in November and December of 2020. And I'm just super excited to discuss these stories because we had some great ones, we had some not so great ones, and I just think overall it was just such a nice reading period that I just, it was emotional and it was amazing. But before I get into those books, if you've yet to check out my Twitter nor my Bookstagram, I would highly recommend you go check those out because I post some extra bookish content that you're not gonna see here. So for the very first book that I read in the beginning of November, it was Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Now, when his family has trouble accepting his true gender, Yadril sets to prove himself as a brujo by summoning and releasing the ghost of his cousin, his recently deceased cousin Miguel. With the help of his best friend Maritza, Yadril accidentally summons the spirit of the school's resident bad boy Julian Diaz, and Julian really wants to find out how he died and the conditions of his death, and so he's not going to move on until he does so Yadril is forced to tag along. However, the more they discover about Julian's death, the sooner it is for Julian to go. And Yadril starts to like his company and may not want him to leave. And this novel was just phenomenal. This novel was amazing. I enjoyed it so much. I found the writing to be impeccable. I found the character relationships and developments to be impeccable. Maritza, iconic, love her, stan her. Yadril's character arc, phenomenal, amazing, heartwarming. Julian and Yadril's friendship, relationship, everything I could have wanted. It was such a stunning debut novel from Aidan Thomas, and I'm just super excited to see what he releases next. Into the Neverwoods, I believe, is the next one of his releases, and I'm just super excited for that because I love Peter Pan reimaginings and stuff like that, so it's going to be amazing. This novel just hit all the right marks for me. The world building, the magic system, beautiful, and the plot. I did want a tiny bit more from the plot, but it wasn't enough to take off a star. This story was just amazing, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because chef's kiss. I really want more from this world, so I'm hoping that Aidan one day writes a sequel to this because I just think it's going to be so amazing, and I loved the kind of found family and family acceptance that were in this novel because it really showed how much family matters and how much having a family matters, whether it's one that's by blood or one that you've made on your own. There's so many good things I loved about this, and I spoke with Blake about it because we were budding reading it together, and I definitely need to buy a physical copy of this book because I don't own a physical yet. I know ILLUMICRATE did a special edition of Cemetery Boys that I missed out on, unfortunately, so yeah. The second book that I then read, or collection of short stories, were The Drowning Faith by R.F. Kuang, and this was a collection of short stories from Nezha's point of view, set between the Dragon Republic and the Burning God. You can read it between them, however it does spoil the Burning God just a little bit, so if you're not afraid of mild spoilers, then there you go. Otherwise, you can read it approximately halfway through the Burning God, or you may as well just read it at the end. This broke me. This was just such an amazing collection of scenes and such an amazing collection of viewpoints and memories from Nezha's point of view that it really gave a lot of context towards Nezha and his actions and his thoughts during the series. I cried. I did cry. Fuck's sake. It was amazing, and R.F. Kuang's writing always gets to me. These scenes were just, again, a chef's kiss. There's a lot of chef's kisses coming to these books that I've read in the past 2 months. Yeah, I just think that this novel was just amazing, and thank you R.F. Kuang for those. The next books that I then read were part of the East Asian reading vlog that I did in November, and though that was just such a great reading vlog, and if you haven't watched that, you can go check that out. But the first 2 books that I read were one that a lot of people had been requesting that I read for the longest time. I know Aaron from Booked and Busy really liked it, Mina really liked it, CW has her name as CW of the No Peak clan, so I knew that a lot of people who have similar reading tastes to me really did like this series. And so that series in question is The Green Bone Saga by Fonda Lee, which starts with Jade City and then leads on to Jade War. So in Jade City, the Call family rule the No Peak clan, who vie for control of Kekon's bustling capital city. They care about nothing but their own, collecting tithes and overseeing the production and the market of jade. Jade being the lifeblood of the island of Kekon, and Greenbone warriors have used jade to enhance their magical abilities to protect the island from foreign invaders. However, when a drug is released that allows anyone, even foreigners, to wield jade, the tensions between the cause and the rival clans brews and slowly boils to the surface, causing a clan war which results in Kekon never being the same again. For anyone. You can definitely tell that things boil to the surface with Jade City. Like, this book, it starts off like a wuxia drama, introducing all of the different characters and all of the different dynamics and making sure that you firmly know where people are in this world. And I really loved that. It was amazing. But then we get to the midpoint and just everything changes. Everything snaps really quickly into place and the action just immense. It's a stunning, it's a beautiful, and I just loved how this like built up the trilogy as a whole. And then, holy Jesus, we got to Jade War, and oh my god, things just elevated to a whole other level. We got to see my favourite characters, Wen, Andy, and Shay, elevate and really come into their own in this novel. Stunning character development, stunning world building, stunning character relationships. Things really got going, and this is definitely my favourite book of the series thus far, although I know Jade Legacy is going to wreck me, and I'm not looking forward to that, but at the same time, this is just so stunning, and Fondeli's writing is amazing. I really want to do like a thing one day, or like maybe like once a month, where I just do a spoilery talk. Like maybe you could vote on it as well, but I really do want to talk about like these books spoilery wise. Yeah, Jade War was just stunning. Both these books got 5 stars because some of my new favorite fantasies, because this isn't like typical fantasies that I've read before where like it's like set in like a pseudo medieval setting. This is set in like a city that has technological advancements and has gangs and guns and stuff, and it just took fantasy to a whole new level for me. It like elevated the scope of fantasy that I had been used to, had really expanded my mindset of what fantasy could be, and so I really thank Jade City and Jade War for that. The next book that I then read was one that had been on my radar for quite some time, and this edition was just stunning. It is beautiful. I'm sad I missed out on the Fairy Loot edition as well, and so we have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Chloe Gong being like one of the best Gen Z authors that is out there at the moment, killing the game on TikTok and a bunch of other social medias. This is the level that I aspire to have when it comes to market my own book one day. The Gen Z energy. Gen Z authors are really going to change the scope of the writing landscape. We can see this through Raquel, Zoe, Farida, like Gen Z authors. Yes. Anyway, moving on. This Romeo and Juliet reimagining follows Juliet and Roma, ex-lovers from rival gang. The ex-lovers from rival clans, the Scarlet Gang and the White Flowers, who have feuded for multiple years now. After the events that transpire between them, Juliet promises herself to end Roma once and for all, and she is determined to do so. However, when a strange contagion emerges that has both Scarlet and Flowers clawing at their throats, Juliet and Roma are forced to work together to find the source of the illness before they too tear their own throats out. And Chloe Gong, I still don't forgive you for the way you ended this book. Like, please, are you fucking kidding me? Like, excuse me? This novel was just amazing. Written beautifully, written immensely. The character relationships are the strongest aspect of this novel. The way that Chloe Gong is able to make these characters believable, the way that she is able to elevate them to a whole other plane of existence in my brain and living in there rent-free. Juliet and Roma's relationship is just so intricately woven, and especially with the Christmas special that she released this past Christmas with all of these amazing scenes of like Juliet and Roma together, and oh gosh, amazing. I just think that there is so many layers to them, like an onion. Juliet and Roma's relationship is an onion. It has many layers. This novel was just amazing. The plot was amazing. The ending was amazing, despite the fact that I sincerely need the sequel right away. There's just so many memes that you could make with this book, and it is amazing. I know Tiffany made a meme compilation for the Poppy War, but has one been made for These Violent Delights? I would hope so. And if you haven't picked this up, please go pick it up and support Chloe. The next series I then read was one that was pitched to me as Project Runway meets Mulan, and it failed to meet both of them. Well, the next series in question was the Blood of Stars duology by Elizabeth Lynn, consisting of Spin the Dawn being the first book and Unravel the Dusk being the second book. And this basically follows Maya Tamarin, who aspires to be the greatest tailor across the land. However, because she is a girl, that is not possible. However, when a royal messenger comes one day requesting her ailing father's appearance in court to become the royal tailor, Maya snatches that chance, dresses up as a boy, and goes to the royal court. However, what she isn't prepared for is the competition of backstabbing and lies, and the mysterious appearances of the magician Eden, who basically might be able to see through her disguise. But nothing could have prepared her for the final task, where she is then asked to make 3 spectacular dresses with the aspects of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And it may take her life to complete all 3 dresses. And so you see why I was so disappointed by these 2 books. I liked Spin the Dawn. I liked the first 50% of Spin the Dawn. It was just an amazing ride to see this competition and to see like how everything was building up. And the competition then ended 33% of the way through the novel. I thought the competition was going to span the entire thing. Leads me to believe I was like misled by the synopsis. So the Project Runway aspect was kind of there, however the tasks were like done over and done really quickly, and we never really got to see Maya's process throughout these tasks. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna go make this, okay, thank you, and then the judging commenced. It wasn't it for me. I felt like the pace of the competition was way too fast. And then we got to the making of the 3 dresses, which was a completely separate aspect to the competition. It just failed for me, because then the whole plot just slowed down in order to do these final 3 dresses, which weren't part of the competition as told by the synopsis that it was. So you can see where I just got a bit iffy with this book, because I just feel like the synopsis was completely misleading me throughout the entire thing. Like, the character building wasn't great. I just think like Eden wasn't really developed that well. I feel like Maya as well wasn't really developed that well. She like had some moments of evolution, but then I just don't know, I feel like she was very two-dimensional. The romance as well basically took priority over the main plot, which is something that I have a distaste for. Like, it's sometimes done well in these violent delights where like the romance is interwoven into the plot and like acts as a whole like attached dynamic to the plot, but when it acts separately and tries to overpower the plot, this is where we're gonna have some issues, because some people really do like romance and stuff, but this wasn't pitched as a romance fantasy. This was pitched as like a Project Runway meets Mulan fantasy, and that just did not happen, and I am sad about that. And then we got to the sequel, and no, like, I just didn't care. I didn't care about these characters. I didn't care about the plot. Like, yes, such and such happened in the last part of this book, which then, like, had this part happening. And nothing convinced me that this book was going to be amazing. Like, I did, like, a few minor points in it, which was what gave it 2nd star, but it just wasn't great, and I just felt like I was, like, the ending was probably the best part of this novel, and that's it. Like, I just didn't care about anything else, and it just wasn't that great, but the ending was great. So yeah, so overall, this series got a 2.5 stars. If you like kind of like a simplistic fantasy that kind of has a romance as the center focus, then maybe you would like this duology, but for me, it was just quite a miss. But I will be reading Elizabeth Lim's next novel, 6 Crimson Cranes, because I want to give her another chance, because I really want to see whether she'll be able to deliver through that. I have a 3-strike system with authors. Like, if one series doesn't do it for me, 1 strike. Their next book doesn't do it for me, another strike. If their next book again doesn't do it for me, then maybe that author just isn't for me. Unless they're problematic, then, you know, 1 strike does plenty. The next book that I then read in November was one that was the late night book club pick for the month of November that was hosted on my channel. So if you've yet to watch the live show, it is up on the channel at this moment in time. I gave this 4 stars, and that book in question is Black Sun by Rebecca Rowanhorse. We chose this book because it was Native American Heritage Month, and we really wanted to celebrate a Native author. And also, this was a fantasy book, and I really wanted to expose Noelle to fantasy for the first time, and she ended up enjoying this book. Noelle now wants to read more fantasy, and so I'm really excited by that, and I just cannot wait to just be like, here's the fantasy recommendations. So in the holy city of Tova, a winter solstice is approaching. Usually it's a time for celebration, however a solar eclipse is coming, and the resident sun priest predicts that this will be a time that will unbalance the world. In the distance, a ship departs heading for Tova. Its captain Jala, a disgraced teak who carries the songs of the ocean, carries a passenger, Serapio, who is young, blind, and cloaked in destiny. However, Ajala knows when a man is perceived as harmless, he usually ends up being the villain. And as the earth and sky converges on the solar eclipse, a god will return to the world. And so this book just took me on a ride. Like, I loved the characters of Jala and Serapio, and also Nara. Nara's perspective wasn't amazing, but like, I really did like reading her thoughts and stuff, and plus we loved the inclusion of neo-pronouns in this book. I think that this novel was just so well thought out, and it's a great beginner fantasy for those who don't really read much fantasy. The plot, amazing. The world building, amazing. I just think there were so many good plot beats throughout this novel, plot, and the writing was just took me to a whole other plane. Rebecca Roanhorse really did well writing this high fantasy for the first time, and so I'm really excited to see book 2 of Black Sun and how it carries on and how things are going to happen. Like, we theorized a lot in that live show about what's going to happen in the sequel, so I cannot wait to see what's going to happen. Again, just such a stunning cover, and I just really liked as well kind of the magic systems that took place throughout this novel and the slight bits of magic that we got with Jala and her being able to sing to the ocean, how Teeks and other races within the world interact, and the superstitions and stuff, and like the piracy, like I'm really wanting a really good pirate novel. And then we get on to December, where I only really read like 2 books because a lot of things happened in December with uni and real life, so I didn't really get to read as much. However, this first novella that I read in the live show with Molly when she was doing reading sprints took me on a ride, took me on a journey. I really enjoyed it a lot. And so that novella in question is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Edmuta and Max Gladstone, and this is the ILLUMICRATE exclusive edition with 2 duplicate copies, one in red and one in blue. The blue one has the red bird, the red one has the blue bird, and they're both the same novel. It's just like one representing each of the agents within the novel, and it's great for a buddy read as well if like 2 people wanted to read it at the same time. Like, I could be like, oh, here you go friend, here's a copy, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and then we could read it together. Among the ashes of a dying world, an agent of the Commandant finds a letter. It reads, "Burn before reading," and so begins an unlikely correspondence between 2 rival agents, Red and Blue. They're hell-bent on securing the best possible future for their respective and warring factions. However, it begins to grow into something more, something epic, something romantic, something that could change both the past and the future for both of these women. The discovery of their bond could mean the death of both of them, as there's still a war going on, and someone has to win. And so, oh my gosh, this sapphic sci-fi, amazing, stunning. It was just so beautiful, and like within a small amount of pages as well. Like, novellas are really killing it, and I cannot wait to read more novellas this year, like amazing. And yeah, This Is How You Lose the Time War, epic. I really want to reread this soon as well, because the writing was just amazing. The interactions were funny. There was like one point where one of the agents was like, hey, and then put the hex code of the color. Like me, like knowing a lot of hex codes because I do designing of like thumbnails and stuff, I literally creased. I was laughing for 5 minutes on that live show. I just loved how clever this novel was as well, and how snarky both women were towards one another until they like got into this romantic feelings for one another, and it's just amazing to see. And I just think that it was just like I also find that I really want like something longer from this. Like, that was my only gripe, that this wasn't long enough. I wanted way more, but I feel like we got just enough to have a complete story. But if they wanted to one day write a sequel or write like an expanded novel about these 2 women time traveling together throughout like different worlds and timelines, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing more adventures of Red and Blue. Like just the way that these covers look as well. Like, ILLUMICRATE really kill it with the exclusive editions. Although it'd be fun to also read like Red's chapters in the Red book and then Blue's chapters in the Blue book, as if like you're receiving letters from both of them at the exact same time, but like you're interfering in their conversation. Like, that would be really cool as well. And last but not least, we have a novel that I ended the year with, and this novel was one that I was buddy reading with Molly from Mind of Molly, and she's amazing. Go follow her, go subscribe to her. I'll have her linked in the description down below. And this novel just took me on a ride. It was a horror. Kayla, I know if you're watching this, I'm getting into more thrillers and horrors now. I hope you're proud of me, because honestly, like, this one just hit the spot for me, and that was Year of the Witching. Oh, holy shit. So in the lands of Bethel, the prophet's word is law, and according to this law, Emmanuel Moore is blasphemous. Her mother's union with an outsider of a different race cast her family into disgrace. That rhymed. Emmanuel forces herself to conform to the prophet's laws, much like a lot of the other women within Bethel. However, when she finds herself in the Darkwood and is given her mother's old journal by the 4 spirits of the witches that were burned by the first prophet, she decides to learn more about the church and its rules. And so she discovers that there is a greater darkness that lies in the heart of the church and in the prophet himself. And if Bethel is to change, then she must be the one to enact it. And so she enacts it. She gets on a whole other plane of badassery, and I love it. I love Emmanuel so much. I love her no bullshit attitude. I love the way that she is just protective of everyone around her, but also at the same time, her selflessness is one of the best things in this novel, and just seeing her and the way that she like operates throughout this is just chef's kiss. The way that this world has been built up, and the Darkwood and Bethel and the world outside, again, amazing. I just think this was spectacular in world building, spectacular in plot, spectacular in like character building, and just the way that the horror was integrated within. It was just unsettling, but also really intriguing at the same time. Like, I wanted to know more about these witches. I wanted to know more about their past. I wanted to know a lot, and it was just great to see. It talks a lot about patriarchy and how patriarchy is oppressive to women, where we really need to live in a more equal society. I think that this really showed a lot about those cults, and how cult leaders take multiple wives, and how a lot of things like brainwashing people and indoctrination. I think that this novel just teaches so much about kind of these dark societies and the way that they operate, and it's just amazing, and I really loved it. There's just so much I could say about how iconic this novel is, and I'm hoping there's a sequel. If not, that's fine, but also at the same time, I would love to see a sequel in this world. I would just love to see much more from Alexis Henderson, and I cannot wait to see what she writes next. I really want the US cover as well, because the US cover is just simply stunning, plus there's a black woman on the cover, which is always a plus in my book. And so yeah, that is the last book that I then read in 2020, and then I started Addie LaRue, and that carried me through to 2021. That is everything that I basically read in the last part of 2020. So in the comment section down below, tell me about one of the books that you read in November and December of 2020 and why you enjoyed it, and maybe give me a recommendation from those books as well. And so yeah, that is everything. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, be sure to click that subscribe button so that you're notified whenever I upload next. This week's shout out fates goes out to Zoe Hannah, who recently started a booktube channel, and she is amazing and killing the game. Her book Gear Breakers comes out this June, and I'm just so excited for it because it's another sapphic sci-fi, and holy fuck, am I excited. Like, just go check out the book. Just go check out her booktube channel as well, and I'll have her linked in the description down below, because Zoe is simply amazing and another Gen Z author that is going to kill the game this year, and I'm just super excited for it. And if you want to see any other of my social medias, I have them linked in the description down below, and if you wanted to support me any further, I'll have my Ko-fi and my Amazon wishlist linked in there too, so that you can help support me further. And so yeah, I guess until the next video, bye friends.